future of Avatar may be on shaky ground. James Cameron is saying that Avatar 4 and 5 can't happen without massive retooling. What does this mean for Disney, who has just invested a whole buttload of money into Avatar-themed theme park lands? We'll talk about it today on That Park Place. All right, Vash, here from thatparkplace.com. This is a VIP article. Normally, you guys have to be VIP members to access it, but it says in Hollywood, few directors can draw audiences based on their name alone yet. As the film industry changes, billion-dollar blockbusters are becoming harder to produce. According to World of Real, James Cameron recently suggested on the Empire podcast that making Avatar 4 and 5 may require major adjustments. So the last Avatar film, 2025's Fire and Ash, reportedly carried a production budget exceeding $400 million, making it one of the most expensive movies ever produced. That is insane.
Man, that's rough.
Yep. After the film underperformed compared to the franchise's previous $2 billion entries, grossing roughly $1.23 billion worldwide, James Cameron sounded uncertain about the franchise's future. In January, he framed comments about returning cast members around "if we make Avatar 4," and added, "We have to do well, and we need to figure out how to make Avatar movies more inexpensively in order to continue." Speaking to Empire, Cameron was even more specific about what future Avatar films would require. At the same time, he remained measured about the prospects. Avatar 4 and 5 are still floating out there. Notably, parts of Avatar 4 have reportedly already been filmed, and the scripts for the remaining films are complete. Even so, his phrasing suggests that the franchise's future is far from guaranteed. He explained that his goal is to make future Avatar films in half the time for 2/3 of the cost. The comment raises questions about what a $267 million Avatar film might look like, whether it could maintain the high standards set by earlier entries. Still, James Cameron sounded optimistic that the goal is achievable, saying it may take a year or so to refine the process. Now, obviously, we're saying, can technology reduce the risk? Producer Ray Sancini assured fans that Avatar 4 and 5 were moving full speed ahead and explained that custom technology similar to Lucasfilm's Volume would help streamline productions. As right now we're figuring out the schedule, we're working hard on budgeting, planning, and building out the new production pipeline. Now, here's the thing. I don't believe, Vash, for 2 seconds that they are not making Avatar 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that they're going to want to continue this franchise here. The question is, you know, can you really do it in a way that's affordable? And I think those conversations are being had with James Cameron, which is why he's saying this, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you why James Cameron is saying this. This is my firm belief. I have nothing to base this off of other than just my personal suspicions. Mm-hmm. James Cameron is saying this repeatedly, over and over and over and over again, for one reason and one reason alone. He wants to use AI.
Yeah.
And he knows if he starts using AI for this, he's going to get an avalanche of hate. So he is making this bed over and over and over again. Oh, well, guys, we might not be able to do it. We have to cut these costs by, 2/3. Like, we got to be able to produce it in half the time. And, we got to do this, that, and the other thing. No, it's because he wants to use AI. He has spoken out against AI. He has an ownership stake in an AI company, however, and he wants to use it. And he's trying to be like, well, it was either this or we don't make them.
Right. Which,
aren't you so glad we made them? I mean, like, I'd be happier if you didn't make them, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's they necessarily aren't the event pictures that they were, especially starting out in 2009, right? I mean, back in that day, nobody had ever seen anything like this. And now it's, the 3D era actually has come and gone within the making of this franchise right here. So I do agree with you, Marvin. They're going to need some efficiencies made, especially in that post-production process, to keep these things going. Because at $400 million, if these films aren't generating anywhere near that $2 billion figure, it just simply does not make sense. And it might be a justification in order to use that. Now, I think you can get away with it in the post-production process. I think a lot of actors and so forth, a lot of people connected to Hollywood on the ground, the rank and file and so forth might have an issue with the actual production process incorporating that. But honestly, I mean, you're right. James Cameron cannot get these made. He will not get these funded if, in fact, they're at these price points.
So James Cameron is not a director known for his thrifty films. Like he's not working on shoestring budgets. Early on, yes. Piranha 2, The Spawning, 1981, $600,000 movie. Terminator, 6.4 million. Aliens, 17 million. The Abyss, 47 million. Terminator 2 Judgment Day in 1991 had a $100 million budget, which in 1991 is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
True Lies in 94 was 100 to 110 million. Titanic in 1997 was a $200 million movie. What is I'm gonna see real quick. What is $200 million in 1997 in today's money?
I mean, you're talking, it'll probably say something like 350 or something like that.
414.98 million if that was made today.
That's crazy. That's insane. I
So
mean
that's the equivalent there. Then you have the first Avatar in 2009, 237 million. The Way of Water was 350 to 400 million. And now we're saying Fire and Ash was well over 400 million. This guy cannot make a cheap movie to save his life.
He cannot. And part of the reason is because he's always pushing the realms of technology, pushing the realms of filmmaking and so forth. He's not
absolutely. I get where it's coming from.
Right. But it's one of those things, Marvin. If you aren't bringing in those box office returns that have that justify those budgets, I mean, what do you do? And I think maybe the cultural moment surrounding Avatar may have passed, perhaps with a little bit more time between these films. Perhaps you can reinvigorate that interest in a similar way that Way of Water did following the initial film there. But it's man, that I don't know really where to go with this franchise. Maybe Disney doesn't either. I think Drew Taylor from The Wrap was suggesting that maybe Disney was perhaps rethinking even putting Avatar in Disney California Adventure, because remember they announced that some years ago. So Bob Iger announced that I think back in February of 2023, if I'm not mistaken, right there. And yet we still haven't broken ground on that specific project. So there is still time to rethink that. I really don't know if these make sense. Now, if Cameron is able to incorporate AI and get these budgets down, perhaps. But again, Hollywood is going to have some big concerns about that.
I mean, it feels like to me almost like them making an Avatar land in Disneyland. It feels almost to me like Universal just suddenly doubling down on Fast and the Furious. Like you are not timely on this one.
Yes, yes, indeed. That's exactly what it sounds like. Now, at least in this franchise that we're seeing here, it might have more gas in the tank if they can actually get 4 and 5 out. But like you said, the time certainly has passed. I think the original idea of bringing Avatar to Disney California Adventure, Marvin, that was right off the heels of The Way of Water, which just accrued to $2 billion at the box office. That was the most successful franchise that Disney had in its repertoire when Bob Iger came back in. Now times have changed, 3 to 4 years later here. The whole media landscape has changed. And honestly, when you look at something like this and you compare that even with Zootopia, which is, breaking box office records and so forth and made for maybe half the cost of this, doesn't quite make sense to go in that direction for the theme parks, especially when you talk about merch and, all those related ancillary sales. Pursuing this franchise, honestly, I don't quite know if it makes sense unless he can get those budgets down. But even if he can, I mean, what's the box office figure going to look like? Even if it's a fantastic film, are these depreciating assets here?
Absolutely. I think it is. I mean, when you make a movie, right? Like when you make a movie franchise like this, you want each installment to draw in more people.
Right.
I'm fairly certain that the Lord of the Rings trilogy made more money with each installment, Right. Hold on, let me look that up. Lord of the Rings box office. Lord of the Rings movies box office. Fellowship of the Ring made 898 million. The Two Towers made 947 million. The Return of the King made 1.15 billion. They all came out within a 3-year period. That was 2001,
Right.
2, and 3. That is what you want to see. That is All Rise.
Versus
you know,
like Star Wars, for example, right? In this new trilogy that they just had, or the or maybe the new assemblage of films, if you include Rogue One and Solo, all of those went down. Right. And that's the current trajectory, unfortunately, of Avatar right now versus Zootopia, for example, that's on the upswing. So you just kind of have to look at it and go, okay, well, Avatar, just to make it, it's going to be 3 to 5 years in order to get to that point, right?
Yep.
But when you look at the theme park space, well, that's even more critical because whatever you build has to be relevant for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, etc.
So, I mean, we're looking at, let's look at the first Avatar as an event film, right? So maybe it's not fair to judge the other ones on the first one because it was such a revolutionary film. It was the first one to really get 3D correctly. So yeah, maybe The Way of Water doesn't make more than the first Avatar, and maybe that's okay, and maybe that's expected.
Sure.
Fire and Ash should have made more than The Way of Water.
Or been very close to it.
Yeah, and it's nowhere in the same ballpark. I think it was like, wasn't it like a $900 million gap between the two of them?
I mean, 900 to 700 million. I mean, somewhere in that realm. I mean, it was a pretty far off drop for this, and this is, I think, the longest of the Avatar films as well. And remember James Cameron, you guys sit through these big sagas on Netflix and stuff. You can sit through this, and it's like, well, that's going to hurt your box office potential. You know what
I could do when I binge Netflix? I could pause, walk out of the room, do other things. Like,
yes.
So Avatar made 2.92 billion, and obviously it reclaimed the top spot after Endgame ended it. And then Way of Water was 2.32 billion, which honestly I feel like for an event film like that, that's an acceptable drop from one to the other.
Yes, yeah.
But then
it's 2.3 really. Wow.
2.32. Then Fire and Ash made 1.49.
So that's the 900 you were talking about there.
Yeah, $900 million difference. That is huge, dude. That is several films worth of total box office, like in between the two movies. It's hugely problematic for them.
It couldn't come at a worse time there, Marvin. The reason why Bob Iger approved something like this coming to Disneyland was because, like I said, like all the other franchises had kind of died off by that point. Well, they still haven't restored where Marvel was, where Star Wars was, etc. during the 2010s. And so Marvel's down, Star Wars is down, and now Avatar's down. So basically your live action stalwarts have all crumbled. And again, this is part of a $70 billion deal for Fox, right? So
I was about to say, look at the things that Bob was looking at in terms of marketing, in terms of value. For Fox, it was Avatar. We're going to make billions off of Avatar. And once we can get our hands on the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, we're going to make billions. Well, Avatar's on the way down, and you've got the Fantastic Four bombed. So what did you spend all that money for, Bob?
Bob Iger has the opposite of the Midas touch, man.
He really does. He really does. Don't get me wrong. Pixar, great acquisition. Marvel and Star Wars were even great acquisitions, and Marvel was a good generator for quite a while. It's just it's the wrong people got put in charge of these things, and that's not saying obviously I don't think I didn't see the latest Avatar. I don't know if it's like virtue signally or whatever. I mean, they are usually pretty environmental films, but I don't think it ever got into like race or anything like that, because how could it? They're blue people. No. But yeah, I think people are just kind of like, and I saw this, I'm kind of done. Like, the story has made no cultural impact on anyone. Jake Sully is no one's favorite fictional character. Like, I could, and that's the only one whose name I could tell you. Because it's the easiest milquetoast name ever to remember.
I mean, you were good to get Jake Sully right. I don't even think it's Terry. Was the other one?
I don't
Look,
know. She's the blue lady. That's what everyone calls her.
Yes. Well, they're all blue. Look, I actually like the Avatar films. I like Fire and Ash. I really did. I thought, maybe it's a little bit really long. It's really emotionally impactful. Maybe it could have been a little bit tighter in that regard. Anyway, I did like these films. It's just, like you said, Marvin, it's nobody's favorite. These films haven't necessarily made the big cultural impact that I think you expect from other franchises. I don't even know what revenue streams are like for this when it comes to merchandise and so forth. So all of these things are being weighed on right now by Josh D'Amaro, Thomas Moslem, I'm sure, going, okay, are they going to fund... If we invest billions of dollars into this thing, are they going to fund the Parks and Resorts division, especially coming out of Disneyland, for the foreseeable future? And I don't know if I can confidently say that, Marvin. That's the problem.
So what do you think is the bigger draw for Disneyland, Vash? As somebody who goes to Disneyland quite a bit, knows the fan base, the audience that they have. What makes more money? A Avatar land or bringing in Zootopia?
I think Zootopia would. I've seen demographics there. I've obviously seen. I mean, when Zootopia came out, people were dressing up as tree hops. People had like all kinds of Zootopia merch already on them. Did not see that for when Avatar actually was released. We haven't really seen that from Disneyland Kingdom either. I mean, outside of the first couple of months where we saw Banshees and so forth, those are going to drop off a little bit in terms of popularity and relevance. So when I look at and again, I think they want to broaden out and make it attractive for international audiences, which Avatar certainly would be attractive for that demographic, but Zootopia would as well. So, and there are rumors suggesting that if they were to bring in like Hot Pursuit, for example, from Shanghai, that uses the same Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway ride system. So both those rides could be maintained at Disneyland Resort, in a much more efficient way, much more better way than perhaps Avatar being installed there. So, like, when you look at all of the things surrounding this, it doesn't quite make sense, Marvin, and that's sad, especially coming from an Avatar fan.
And imagine an Avatar land, right? Compare it to this. This is Shanghai. This is Zootopia in Shanghai.
Right.
This is insane. Look at that. The little hamster wheels, or they're all the little hamster tubes, they're all going through it, and like the billboards, and this is so cool.
It's fantastic.
People would go ballistic for this. And you know who it was, Vash, that oversaw the creation of this land? Our new friend, who's the new president of Walt Disney World.
Oh yes. Was actually overseeing this resort not only to achieve this milestone with Zootopia, but also to the 100 million guest milestone within 10 years. Pretty darn good surrounding all of this stuff. So Joe Scott's in this new position right here. Thomas Moslem obviously oversaw him when he was at various levels of the experiences division. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, he knows better than anybody how much this impacted Shanghai. It did greatly. I mean, this was hugely surveyed, huge marks on this. People really loved it. They've already done it. And it's in an urban environment or an urban setting that currently exists out there in the corner of Hollywoodland. To me, Marvin, it just kind of makes sense. And, unless James Cameron can get his act together and get some more movies out, does that even have a future at all franchise-wise versus we know Zootopia 3 is going to be produced?
Yep, you're 100% right. I mean, let's look at this, man. Look at this. Like, people would go ballistic for this year. And Zootopia just became the highest grossing animated film of all time. And the only thing domestically in the theme parks that we have is a 3D movie.
Crazy. It's insane.
This should have been greenlit domestically immediately. We should have been getting this instead of Encanto in Walt Disney World.
Yes, no question. I mean, and we were at one point, right, Marvin? When they had the What If segment at the 2022 D23 Ultimate Fan Event. But that's when they brought out the, hey, we can put Moana here, we can put Zootopia there. And everyone's like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense. And I understand, the Ojo Rudy thing where, this is kind of a human story, not an animal story or whatever. Fine, you can have that argument, but this would make money. I mean, there's no question.
But I push back on that, actually, because there is a lot to talk about in terms of Predator and Prey and like the biomes, which go through like, you know, how these animals live and go about their days. I don't know, man. I think there's a lot to talk about. I think that like in Animal Kingdom, you could learn a lot about animals through a Zootopia area.
I think you could. I think you absolutely could. It definitely fits in there. Well, again, this is already a themed land, right? Whereas I think Encanto is going to take up residence with largely a pre-existing land. Mm-hmm. This is a completely new asset for them. Again, it makes sense on paper, and I think it makes sense at DCA as well. It's just, how much does Disney believe in this franchise? I think we'll know if, in fact, the next D23, which is coming up actually this late summer this year, if Disney brings out more concepts for Avatar for DCA, that might actually indicate where they think this franchise is going to be. If they like say, hey, we're going in a different direction, now you know kind of what's going on the theme park side and the film side, and certainly a reflection of the confidence they may have in this franchise going forward.
Absolutely, guys. Well, guys, I mean, there you have it. That's our 2 cents. With diminishing returns and uncertainty in Avatar's future.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.